They didn't leave because they stopped loving you. They left because they didn't know how to stay. And right now, while you're doubting, crying, questioning, they're walking through 7 silent stages that no one talks about, but I'm going to reveal them to you right here, right now. These are just the first 4 stages, but the journey doesn't end here. Because what happens in the final 3 will shock you. They don't come back because they plan to. They come back because they can't not. And when they do, you'll have a choice. Will you invite them back into your life? Or will you have grown into someone they no longer qualify for? Avoidants don't break up the way most people do. They don't sit in the rubble of the relationship right away, wondering where it all went wrong. No, they feel something strange at first, relief and sense of space, a breath of air they've convinced themselves they needed. And if you're the one left behind, that's the part that hurts the most, right? You're there in pieces, questioning everything while they seem fine, even distant. But let me tell you something, that feeling of relief is not resolution. It's not peace. It's a temporary illusion their nervous system creates to survive the intimacy they were never taught how to handle. You see, avoidants don't walk away because there's no love. They walk away because the love becomes too real, too risky. They fear engulfment. Emotional vulnerability is not safe for them. And when that fear reaches a tipping point, they disconnect. But here's the twist. When they leave, they don't process the breakup immediately. They suppress it. They compartmentalize it. They box it up and shove it into a corner of their mind with a label that says, deal with this later. But later always comes. And when it does, it hits like a storm they didn't prepare for. This is the first silent stage. No one talks about the emotional numbness. From the outside, it looks like they're cold, indifferent, even heartless. But inside they're frozen, not because they don't care, but because caring terrifies them. Their system goes into shutdown. And in that shutdown, they tell themselves stories it wasn't going to work anyway. They were too much, I need to focus on myself. These aren't facts, they're protective mechanisms, defense shields, but those shields don't last forever. Here's where the magic happens. When the noise of the breakup dies down, when your voice, your presence, your love is no longer in their daily field, something shifts. That space they thought they needed so badly, it starts to echo. And inside that echo, they begin to feel something they didn't expect, emptiness. That's when numbness starts to melt, slowly, quietly, but surely. And what comes next is what most people don't see coming, the slow unraveling of a person who thought they could outrun their feelings. But now the chase is over, and the silence is starting to speak. Avoidants don't crave connection the way others do, they crave distance. Not because they don't feel, but because feeling is overwhelming for them. They pull away when things get too close. They create space as a form of self-protection. And in the aftermath of a breakup, especially if they were the one to walk away, that space feels like a victory. Finally, they can breathe. Finally, the pressure is off. The phone's not buzzing with messages they don't know how to emotionally respond to. There's no demand to explain what they themselves can't understand. But here's where everything begins to shift. Because after that initial wave of peace comes the silence, and the silence is deceptive. At first, it feels good, calming, like control has been restored. But silence isn't stillness. It's not emptiness. Silence is a mirror. And the longer they sit in it, the more it starts to reflect things back to them that they thought they buried. Your laughter, your scent, the way you made them feel seen in ways they never let on. It doesn't happen all at once. It sneaks in a random memory, a song on the radio, a place you two visited. This is the moment where the silence turns from soothing to haunting. And that's when the second silent stage takes over, the echo of your absence. It's not about missing you like a movie cliche. It's more subtle than that. They start to notice the absence of your energy, the absence of your check-ins, your support, your presence. It's like background music that's suddenly gone and the room just feels colder, emptier. What they don't realize in the beginning is that this freedom they sought doesn't feel like freedom anymore. It feels like loneliness wrapped in ego. And that ego starts to crack, slowly. Because the absence they thought they needed to escape the overwhelm of love is now overwhelming them in a different way. Not with closeness, but with void. They won't admit it, not out loud. They won't text you and say, I miss you, not yet. But the seed has been planted. Your absence is growing louder than your presence ever did. And they start to realize it wasn't that you were too much, it's that you were the only one who ever made them feel safe enough to be seen. And now you're gone. One of the biggest lies people believe after a breakup with an avoidant is that they're forgotten. They moved on. They're living their best life. They don't even care. That's what it looks like, and that's exactly what they want you to think. But let me tell you something you might not be ready for. Avoidants don't forget. They observe silently, consistently, from a distance. It's not in their nature to reach out easily, not when emotions are still raw. But once the dust settles, something else begins behind the scenes. Stage 3, the invisible observation. They start watching you quietly. It starts small. Maybe they check your Instagram story. Maybe they scroll through your profile late at night, heart pounding but hands still. They're not liking your posts. They're not commenting. But make no mistake, they're watching. They're looking for clues. Not just about what you're doing, but about how you're feeling. Are you hurting? Are you angry? Are you missing them? Have you moved on? See, what most people don't understand is that for an avoidant, watching you from a distance feels safer than actually talking to you. Reaching out means risking vulnerability, risking rejection, and that's a battlefield they're not ready to step on yet. But observation? That gives them information without exposure. It gives them control. They can analyze without committing, study without revealing themselves. And every time you post something that shows you're glowing, evolving, laughing, it messes with their perception. Because now they're not just seeing you, they're seeing the version of you they left behind, becoming better without them. And that stings. Not because of ego alone, but because somewhere deep inside they realize you weren't the problem. You were the catalyst. You were the mirror that forced them to confront their own fear of closeness. And now they're watching the very person they emotionally ran from rise. They won't message you yet. They're still in that internal tug of war. But don't underestimate how deeply they're paying attention. That one story you post, that one caption, that quiet confidence you're beginning to wear like armor. It stays with them, it lingers, it burns into their memory. They don't miss the old you. They miss the safe place they never admitted you were. And now, from behind that wall of silence, they're starting to realize you're not chasing anymore. And that changes everything. This is the stage most people never see because by now everything looks calm on the surface. No contact, no message, no sign of life. It seems like they've moved on. But behind that silence, a war is brewing. And not with you within them. It's a full-blown internal battlefield between ego and emotion. And let me tell you something about avoidance. This war is brutal, because neither side wants to surrender. On one side is the ego, sharp, defensive, cold. It's whispering things like, you don't need them. You're better off. Stay strong. Don't give them the satisfaction. This voice sounds powerful. It feels like control. It tells them that silence is strength, that distance is dignity. And for a while they believe it. They hold the line. They stay hidden behind pride. But then comes the emotion, quiet, persistent, rising like a tide they can't hold back. And this voice doesn't shout. It doesn't argue. It just feels. It brings the memories back. The small ones, the way your hand fit in theirs, the way you looked at them when they couldn't look at themselves, the way you understood them without words. That voice doesn't play logic, it plays truth. And now they're stuck in the middle of that pull. One voice says, let go. The other says, go back. One tells them to protect their heart. The other tells them they're losing something they'll never find again. This is the moment where it gets real, not romantic real, because now they're not just fighting with feelings, they're fighting with regret. With the realization that they didn't leave because you weren't good enough, they left because they weren't ready for something that real. And now that you're no longer reaching out, no longer chasing, no longer feeding their ego, the balance of power shifts. Not in a manipulative way, in an energetic way, because you're no longer emotionally accessible. And that's when they feel the loss, not the loss of your presence, the loss of your access. This is when they start rehearsing texts in their head but never send them. They type messages, then delete. They ask mutual friends about you, pretending not to care. They stalk your stories and pretend it was accidental. This is the war zone. They want to come closer, but their fear tells them they won't survive if they do. And the irony, they won't survive not coming back either. So now you know, it was never just a breakup. It was a silent, invisible journey, a psychological measure. Avoidant X began walking the moment they left. Not with intention, not with clarity, but with fear disguised as strength. They didn't leave because you were wrong for them. They left because you were too right, too close, too emotionally available, and that kind of closeness triggers every alarm in someone who's been wired to protect themselves from intimacy. But the real story unfolds after the silence, in the stages you couldn't see, in the battles they fought without ever speaking your name. And now those stages are shaping the path that just might lead them back, not to who they were, but to you. But here's the part that matters most. While they've been walking those 7 silent stages, you've been walking your own. And you've grown. You've cried, questioned, maybe even begged the universe for answers. You've sat in the silence and felt it crush your chest, only to realize that pain was also planting seeds. Seeds of awareness, of strength, of self-respect. Because the version of you they left behind, that version doesn't exist anymore. You've become someone they never expected, not bitter, not broken, but braver. And that growth didn't come from their absence, it came from how you chose to show up for yourself in it. So when they finally reach that last stage, the moment where ego breaks, emotion wins, and they consider returning, they won't be coming back to the same place they left. They'll be facing someone transformed, someone who isn't waiting, but watching. Not hoping, but choosing. Because now it's no longer about whether they come back, it's about whether they still qualify for the version of you that had to rebuild herself in the dark. And that's your power, not in revenge, not in proving a point, but in knowing that your evolution is the final stage they never saw coming. Let them walk their stages. Let the silence do its work. And if one day they show up at your door again, you won't need to guess. You'll feel the truth in your bones, because when someone who once ran from your love finally chooses to stay, not out of fear, not out of comfort, but out of clarity, that's not a reunion. That's a revolution. And until then, keep rising, because this story was always about you. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen, to reflect, and to grow with me today. If this message stirred something in your heart, if it brought you clarity or strength, then it's already served its purpose. Remember, healing isn't about getting someone back, it's about getting yourself back. If you found value in this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more empowering content just like this. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your story, your strength, your truth. Until next time, stay grounded, stay growing, and never forget your worth. Take care and goodbye for now.